Welcome back, everybody. It's been a few years. I'm delighted to be with you back here inside the vault for another exciting season. We have some great episodes lined up and some great guests, including today's guest, Daniela Cambone, who's joining us here in the Cayman Islands to talk about her career in precious metals. Daniela, I'm so thankful that you're here with us today. Thanks again for making another trip down to the Cayman Islands to be with us here inside the vault. I was so interested to have this interview with you because I cannot think of a single other person in the precious metals industry that's been living at the center of the gold and silver universe for over a decade now. So I wanted to get your perspective on precious metals, all the places it's taken you, the people that you've met. So really looking forward to speaking to you today.
Well, it's an absolute honor to be with you, to be the one being interviewed. It feels I'm a little off, so hopefully I'll do you justice. But you know, you don't have to twist my arm to come down to the Cayman Islands. I mean, what an incredible country. And I just look at all this gold surrounding us. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful.
Definitely
so
a nice
I'm really
backdrop.
looking forward to this.
Great. Well, why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about some of the experiences. This career of yours has taken you all over the world.
Yeah.
So what are some of the experiences that you've had as they relate to gold and silver?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And I'm so grateful for the experiences that this industry has allowed me to experience, because I remember we started about the same time in this industry back in, well, actually you started a little earlier than I did, but I started back in '08. And I knew nothing about gold. And I always tell people, you were one of my first teachers. Because I didn't know how it was priced or premium. So it's just incredible to look back now and look at the journey. But you're right. I think the best part is it's taken me all over the world. It's helped me understand cultural differences of like why people are attracted to buying precious metals. But I've also been involved from, you know, being invited to look at gold and silver, you know, deep pit, open pit mines, to the refining of the gold, to how does it get made into these bars, and then finally being sold. So I think that's the coolest part, is I get to see the full circle of this industry. And I think there's a big enigma or mystery surrounding like what is gold, what is silver. And then when you start breaking it down, you really see that it affects your day-to-day life. And if you follow gold and precious metals, you'll actually be exposed to news items around the world. It forces you to stay on top of everything happening globally because it always links back to gold and silver.
And that's exactly why I wanted to do this interview, because you've seen all of those different elements of the industry. Someone like myself, I only get to see kind of one perspective from selling the gold and storing the gold. And you've really seen that. You've had that 360-degree view of the industry, which is really amazing. There's so few people in the world that can say that they've done that. So on that thread, you've also met with some of the brightest minds in our industry, politicians, celebrities, gold analysts, people that hated gold. I mean, you've covered it all. So I'm wondering, are there some things that people have said to you in the last, 15 years of journalism that you've covered our industry that have stuck out with you about gold and silver?
Yeah, totally. And again, like I've been so blessed to meet some of these people totally hating on gold, like Mark Cuban, who was like, it's a pet rock. And I remember he didn't want to do the show for the longest time because he's like, I just hate gold. So I kept emailing him, and then I remember I said, can you please come on the show? And he just wrote, no. And I ran to the team and I was like, Mark Cuban responded. Like, that's the first step. Anyways, and then he eventually came on the show, which was great, and he was great fun, but he hates gold and didn't get it. And then, you have these diehards like Jim Rogers, Robert Kiyosaki, Frank Giustra, Peter Schiff, obviously, guys who have never swayed, who've always believed in gold. But I guess one of the quotes that's always stuck out to me was Jim Rogers. And he told me the thing about bubbles, and we weren't talking about gold per se, it was more in terms of crypto. But any term of bubbles, I guess this would apply to. He said there's always two people that will get burned, skeptics and believers. And that's always just stuck with me because I'm like, that's absolutely true. And then another good one, I just had a talk with Frank Giustra. We're just so concerned about everything that's happening right now. People are afraid, are we headed towards a hot war now and whatnot? And he basically said, when I asked him, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you stay above water with all these negative headlines? And he's like, the arc of history will continue without our input. So it doesn't matter. Like, you don't have control over what history has in store, but you can protect yourself. And that always goes back to gold, right? How can you protect yourself? And for me, that common base is precious metals.
Yeah, a lot of those people that you've spoken to are some pretty bright individuals, and people that our viewers, our followers follow closely. And the fact that so many of them have that commonality of thinking gold and silver are part of a well-diversified portfolio says a lot.
You'd be surprised to see these people that are precious metal diehards that you would never think. George Foreman, came on the show. So people you would never think, because mainstream media doesn't cover precious metals, but a lot of these folks have been hoarding gold for a very long time. Very smart people.
Yeah, I know another one of your good friends, Phil Esposito, a famous Canadian hockey player.
That's when you told me I made it.
That's true.
You were so excited. Yeah, another perfect example. He loves gold. So people you would never think, you just see them, oh, they're an athlete, oh, they're an actor, movie star. But no, they are carefully watching their finances, as they should, and gold plays a big portion in a lot of these celebrities' portfolios, like Phil Esposito.
Well, it's, as you say, it's not mainstream. These conversations aren't out there in, the Financial Times or the front page. So you have to dig a little bit deeper. And thank you. You've been doing that for 15 years of your career now. So that's amazing.
Trying and remaining, it's not just, gold we try and cover, just showing people options outside of the tradition. You don't have to be just in US stocks or buying real estate. What are the other options that you can be in? So just showing folks what else is out there.
Well, that transitions very nicely to my next question. Over your career, you've witnessed bull markets. Yep. You've witnessed long bear markets for precious metals. You've witnessed pretty much every financial situation that you could in that period of time. So my question to you is, do you think gold today is still relevant, less relevant, or more relevant than when you began your career?
I can confidently say I don't think there's ever been a point in history where gold is more relevant today. And I say this because I started my career covering precious metals right after the financial crisis, the tail end. And I remember there was talk that gold could never go to 1,000. It was what? Impossible. And then the whole crisis in Greece broke out, and that's what propelled it. But today, first of all, central bank buying is at historic records. We've never seen central banks buying this amount of gold at this rapid of a pace. That's the number one clue for me, is what do they know that we should know? And we're on a rapid road to de-dollarization. We're seeing countries looking for options outside of the US dollar. This is serious. Russia, China, BRIC nations, they don't want to deal in the US dollar. They're dumping their US dollar. We are on the road to de-dollarization. So central banks hoarding gold, de-dollarization. Will we see a new currency? Because I totally believe we're headed towards a reset. There's no other option. And does part of that new currency involve gold? And I believe it does.
Wow, that's saying a lot. Yeah, I mean, you've spoken to some of the brightest minds in the industry.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. I see it. A lot of these experts had told me about this back in 2018, and I was like, I couldn't see it. Even though I was knee deep in the gold story, I was like, I don't know, I can't see it. Now I see it clearly. It totally makes sense to me.
Wow, and that's exactly why we wanted to have this interview with you, because you have access to all of these minds, and sometimes they're ahead of their own time.
They are.
You know what I mean? If I would have heard this stuff 5 years ago, even now I have a hard time digesting it because it's major. I mean, the US dollar is something we've all banked on and lived off of forever.
Well, Doug Casey was talking about central bank digital currencies before even that was a term. And I was thinking, what is he talking about, this Fed coin he's named? And now here we are, the US is going to, start some sort of Fed payment system pilot project in June or July of this year. It's all happening. Frank Juster spoke about the reset in 2018. He's one of the ones where I was like, impossible. 2018, I just can't see this happening. The end of the dollar, and I don't think the US is going to roll over easily. That's always my comeback when I hear that, is I just don't see them surrendering that power. But I don't know how they maintain the power. I'm almost afraid of what are those tools in their toolbox to preserve the power of the US dollar.
Right.
I don't know. I don't have the answer for you.
Right. And we know some of those tools will not be peaceful and good for everybody.
Unfortunately, I don't think it will.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we've determined at this point, based on all of the really smart people that you've met, speaking to our clients, both of us have made a career
Yeah.
around this stuff. We know that owning precious metals is a smart play.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do I own it? So there's different ways you can have exposure. Mining stocks, very common. ETFs, very common for the mainstream, for institutional investors. And then there's physical gold like this in a vault. You've interviewed mining CEOs. You've heard the pitch. You've interviewed Wall Street types. You've heard their take on ETFs and more digital means of owning assets. And then you've obviously talked to a lot of gold bugs and a lot of gold dealers over your career. Where do you fall?
Yeah. So for me, it's physical gold, 100%. Physical, I own physical and I own mining stocks. So that's the two ways I play it. But yeah, I don't want the paper gold. I want the physical gold, and I like to store it offshore for my family. That's what keeps me sleeping sound at night. Mm-hmm. And I think that, the mining stocks have been completely, especially if you look at the junior space, have been completely crushed. And once gold, starts a rapid ascent, really breaks through its all-time highs, we're going to see mining stocks take off. I know we've heard this for a long time, but I really feel that everything is perfectly aligned for this to happen. So yes, mining stock investing is way more volatile than investing in the physical. But you could, easily see, 5x, 10x, 20x returns pretty quickly. So that's how I like to play it. I'm also on the board of Eris Gold. So obviously I'm a big believer in the mining space, a big promoter and supporter of the space.
Mm-hmm. So you like your gold either in the ground.
That's right.
Or on the shelf.
That's right.
Not on a piece of paper.
And I don't, people who are in the ETF, GLD, whatever, if that's what you find works for you, fantastic. But for me, it's like, okay, well, if I need to liquidate quick, in case of whatever emergency, I like the physical gold.
Right.
Yeah.
You can get your hands on
it.
Yeah. Understood. So I want to ask you kind of a lighter question here. We were getting pretty serious, but you're surrounded by hundreds of millions of dollars worth of what I would call real money or hard money. What's the sensation? A lot of people haven't had the chance to sit in a gold vault before.
No.
What does it feel like when you come here? You've been here a few times.
Yeah.
What does it feel like?
And you and I have sat in other vaults like RCM and whatnot, but it never gets old. It's like seeing the Colosseum, like I used to live in Rome and people would be like, do you get bored of seeing the Colosseum? Never. I'd walk by every morning and be like, and looking at gold bars is kind of the same sensation. Like or silver, or platinum and palladium, but mostly gold, that's in my heart. But it just never gets old. It just feels like I'm looking at history. I'm holding safety, security, and something powerful. People may say I drank the Kool-Aid, but I feel once you start learning about gold, you'll really understand that it's just, the ultimate asset to hold during these times.
Right. It's a really hard asset to turn your back on. I figured out.
It is. It just gets you. Once I got it, I got it. And so people will ask me, do you still track the spot price? I used to in my previous work where that was part of the job, but now I don't. I don't track the price. It doesn't matter to me what the price of gold is because I know it's not going to zero because central banks own way too much of it.
Yeah.
So, and I sleep well at night.
Well, that's another thing you and I have in common, Dee. We don't worry about the price of gold anymore. No. We sleep better at night knowing that we own it.
And I get like people who are new to it get consumed and obsessed with where's gold today? But once you understand how gold can work for you and how it preserves your purchasing power and your wealth, you just forget about the price, So I don't need it to go to 10,000 or 5,000. If it does, okay. But we don't need gold to do that. It's doing exactly what it needs to be doing.
Very wise words from the queen of precious metals, Daniela Cambone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. We've really come full circle.
We have. I'm so glad that we got to do this.
And
thank you for coming to Cayman again and being with us
Absolutely.
inside the vault.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
All right.